By Azeroth's somewhat chaotic standards, Westfall is a fairly typical region. Sure, it has its problems, mass unemployment, some very angry gnolls, out of control field golems and a tornado that's been raging for several years, but these issues become relatively minor when compared to the problems it has now. Hi people, it's Archivist here, and welcome to the pre-Legion Demonic Invasion event. So looking back to my first impressions of Warlords of Draenor, I thought it was a very impressive expansion. It had a very strong start. The garrison was at first very interesting before I got sick of it. The early content was quite impressive. I really enjoyed the lore, and I did very much enjoy Draenor as a continent. However, the issues came later on, where Blizzard seemed to neglect actually adding any real content, and also it seemed like totally changing directions on where they wanted to take Warlords of Draenor. At first, there was a very strong focus on the Iron Horde, but they dealt with the Warlords themselves very quickly, and then jumped to the Hellfire Citadel patch and went straight for the Burning Legion, and then there was nothing for a very long time. It felt like a very rushed expansion that lingered for far too long with nothing new. And so now with the Demonic Invasion, the Broken Shore scenario, Dark Whispers, and of course the Demon Hunters, we are finally very grateful, although somewhat resentful given how long we had to wait, that we are getting some new content. And this is some very interesting, very ambitious, worldwide, very MMO-y content. So, as you're seeing here, this is the Demonic Invasion of Azeroth, which takes place across many regions. So what you're seeing here is Westfall, but this can also take place in, well, what I've experienced is Hillsbrad Foothills, Ashara, and as you're seeing here, Westfall. But there are other regions which this can take place in. And essentially, it's a case of the Burning Legion coming down, attacking the zone, attacking these main points. So here it's Sentinel Hill. And you have to fight them as a world event, so in the same kind of behaviour you might take to fight a world boss, and just go through several stages of fighting them. The first stage seems to be just repelling the invasion from the initial point, again in this case Sentinel Hill. Then you have to take on some slightly larger enemies, there's usually 2 of them. Then you have to go out to the zone and you have to fight these Burning Legion structures. I think this is arguably the most impressive point, as it forces you to really go out and take on the Legion as small groups. But then once you've done this, you have to come back and fight the big bad that is leading the Legion attack. It's almost saddening to think that this may disappear when Legion finally comes out, because some very impressive stuff has happened, and it's clear that Blizzard have put a lot of effort in it. It's not just a case of, oh, now some Burning Legion mobs are appearing in some of these older zones. You see the atmosphere itself change, you see fire rain down from the sky, you see, well, the coordination of the different stages, you get the loot at the end. It's a proper invasion, it's a proper event, and it's something that I've really enjoyed so far, and I think is going to be very much a draw for people to come back early before Legion has even come out. And it makes me say to myself, if they've put this kind of effort into the pre-event, then wow, what's Legion itself going to be like? Although, and this is the cynic in me speaking now, if you put enough polish, enough refinement, enough epicness, if you will, into this initial pre-Legion event, you manage to suck a whole bunch of players in, they get reinvested in WoW, and as many people can attest to, WoW can be very addictive once you're into it. They don't have to continue with this level of quality, this level of epicness if you want, because they've already got people. And yes, this is very much possible, and I think you could argue this did happen with Draenor, as it started off very strong and then nothing happened. But then again, if you look at the subscriber drop-off that happened in Draenor, it's not the most effective tactic long term. But then again, I think it might be interesting to compare this pre-expansion event to previous ones. And I will admit I'm doing this from memory, so if I miss anything out, please feel free to fill in. So if I remember, and I'm going back a long way now to my very first days in World of Warcraft, there was a similar Burning Legion event coming through the Dark Portal. and there were attacks across Azeroth, but it wasn't on quite the same scale. And then with Wrath of the Lich King, much like Dark Whispers at the moment, there was this plague spreading event that was quite fun. Then with Cataclysm, I remember Deathwing was flying throughout the world and burning people. There was also the Elemental Invasion, and there was also the Echo Isles and Gnomeregan that you got to take over. Then with Mists of Pandaria, there was that scenario where you went to Theramore and it got blown up by a giant mana bomb. And then with Warlords of Draenor, the Iron Horde came forth through the Dark Portal and started attacking the Blasted Lands, and you had to repel them back. But whereas the Iron Horde pretty much didn't get that far, they basically just got to the Blasted Lands and then stopped, and then we immediately pushed back through. The Burning Legion have pretty much attacked the whole of Azeroth, and it's quite interesting how they seem to be able to open portals wherever they want and get demons wherever they want, even in, the throne room of Stormwind if they want to. So they don't seem to have a limit there. Although if I understand it from the War of the Ancients, if they want to summon someone through who's very significant, like say Kil'jaeden, they do need a source of power, like the Sunwell, or in terms of Sargeras, he tried to use the Well of Eternity, but then the Shattering occurred, and so on and so forth. So if I'm right in thinking this, you can't get Sargeras, the Titan Lord of the Burning Legion, onto Azeroth without some kind of really strong source of power. So it seems to be only their lesser ranks, relatively speaking, that can have this extreme mobility. I think something that the Burning Legion invasion event highlights very well is the potential for diversity in the Burning Legion ranks. The thing about the Iron Horde was, yes, you had your Gron, you had some war machines, but there were an awful lot of orcs, and we got fairly sick of them by the end. But in the Burning Legion, you've got so many different types of demons of many different shapes and sizes and dispositions and specialities, and this really does come back to their original lore. So if we go way back to the time of the Titans, where Sargeras was still a good guy, Amenthal charged him with basically smiting evil throughout the universe, and he did this for many years, many eons. However, he was unable to ever entirely purify the universe. It was a task that could never be fully completed, and the sheer amount of time he spent exposed to these corrupted monsters, these demons across many different planets, eventually got to him, and he himself became corrupted and came to the conclusion that chaos and entropy were the natural order of things, and that's what he should be striving to move towards, not this control and order that the Titans wanted. And so he turned against the Titans and decided to raise an army from this evil and created, hence, the Burning Legion. And he also went to many planets and identified some races that were essentially pure and good to begin with, but then corrupted them so that they themselves would serve the Burning Legion. So, for example, he went to the Eredar, their three leaders, Velen, Kil'jaeden and Archimonde, and offered them immense power in exchange for their service, and two of them agreed, these being Archimonde and Kil'jaeden. They were transformed into these demonic monsters. Velen, however, refused and fled with some of the Eredar, who are now the Draenei. As you may know, that's where they ended up on the Azimist Isles in the Exodar. And so this is essentially how the Burning Legion is formed. It's Sargeras going to these many different planets and recruiting these many different aliens. And having demons basically being aliens is a very interesting concept. Whereas, say, Blizzard's other franchise goes for the very traditional demons coming from hell, demons in the WarCraft universe are essentially extraterrestrials, and I think you'll notice that in some of them that do look fairly alien. And I think that's actually a really cool take on the idea of a demon, and gives this infinite possibility for new kinds of demons, because there's no reason Sargeras can't continue to go to different planets and recruit new kinds of demons. So we see variety now, but there could be even more. And so this was my impression of the Demonic Invasion event. I'm really enjoying it at the moment. Hopefully you guys will come back and have a go at it. It's definitely worth at least dipping your toe into the water. As always, people, thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.